intervention in recent British history. Speaking with unmistakable authority outside his Oxfordshire home, Johnson methodically outlined the evidence. Documents now in my possession breaking. Boris Johnson just announced his dramatic return to frontline politics, triggering an immediate collapse of Karma's fragile government. The extraordinary comeback began at 8:42 a.m. when Johnson revealed documented evidence of secret labor deals with European partners. Internal Foreign Office memos show ministers privately accepted full EU regulatory alignment while publicly claiming independence. And what happened next has shattered the parliamentary arithmetic that kept Labour in power. Britain now faces its most volatile political crisis since the Brexit referendum. Your democratic future hangs in the balance. If you want to understand how this astonishing political resurrection reshapes Britain's immediate future, hit that subscribe button right now, because the additional documents being released tomorrow expose betrayals that undermine everything British voters were promised. Here's what ignited this unprecedented political earthquake. For months, Johnson has maintained strategic silence while methodically building a devastating case against Labour's European policy, working with senior civil servants concerned about ministerial duplicity. He accumulated internal communications, proving the government privately accepted terms they publicly rejected. The breakthrough came when a senior Foreign Office whistleblower provided documentary evidence of Starmer personally approving concessions he publicly denounced as unacceptable surrenders of sovereignty. Johnson calculated the precise moment for maximum impact. His timing proved impeccable. This morning's announcement delivered the most consequential political rove beyond reasonable doubt that while ministers publicly declared Britain would maintain regulatory independence, they secretly committed to full alignment with EU standards across 27 critical economic sectors. The Foreign Secretary signed these commitments on September 12th, exactly 9 days after telling Parliament the exact opposite. Political analysts describe it as the most comprehensive evidence of deliberate public deception on international relations in modern political history. Within minutes of Johnson's statement, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage announced immediate withdrawal of parliamentary support for Starr's minority government. His declaration was unequivocal. The confidence and supply arrangement that permitted this government to function is terminated effective immediately. Labour has violated the fundamental condition of our tolerance, not honesty about Britain's relationship with Europe, with Labour commanding just 314 seats. The loss of Reform's crucial 37 votes mathematically guarantees government defeat on any confidence motion. Parliamentary experts confirm Starmer cannot survive without immediate Conservative defections to replace Reform support. Political earthquake intensified when 2 junior Foreign Office ministers resigned with immediate effect. Their joint resignation letter released to the Telegraph was devastating. We entered government committed to honest public service. The documented discrepancy between our European policy, as presented to Parliament, versus actual diplomatic commitments has created an impossible ethical position. We cannot, in good conscience, continue serving in an administration that has systematically misled the public on matters of fundamental national sovereignty. As ministers directly responsible for European relations, their departure represents catastrophic validation of Johnson's central allegations from within Starmer's own government. Meanwhile, ordinary British voters who place their trust in Labour's promises of honest politics watch in growing fury as they discover their democratic choice was built on systematic deception. Margaret Thompson, a 72-year-old retired business owner from Kent, joined hundreds spontaneously gathering outside Parliament. Despite the morning drizzle, she stood firmly holding a handmade sign reading, "Respect my vote." Speaking to reporters with quiet determination, she explained, "I voted Labour because Starr promised straight talking on Europe. No hidden agendas, no secret deals, complete transparency. Now we discover it was all calculated deception. This isn't about whether you support closer European ties. It's about whether citizens can trust a single word their government says." Thomas Hargreaves, a 68-year-old former manufacturing manager from Sunderland, traveled to London specifically to witness the parliamentary response. "I voted Leave but accepted the result when my side lost." He told Sky News outside Westminster, "What I cannot accept is government by deception. If ministers believe closer European integration is best for Britain, They should make that case openly and let voters decide secret deals behind closed doors while saying the opposite publicly isn't governance. It's contempt for democracy itself. While these citizens demand basic democratic accountability, government ministers enjoy extraordinary protection from immediate consequences. Sources reveal Downing Street has activated full crisis management protocols with security details doubled around key ministers. The foreign secretary directly implicated in signing contradictory commitments reportedly can lead all public appearances. Cabinet communications obtained by journalists show ministers frantically constructing explanations that one advisor described as definitional contortions to distinguish between alignment, harmonization, and standardization that nobody outside Westminster will find remotely credible. The contrast is so stark, so fundamentally disconnected from public expectations of governmental honesty, that even dedicated Labour supporters express profound dismay. A YUGV poll conducted immediately after Johnson's intervention shows catastrophic damage to government credibility. 71% of respondents believe ministers deliberately misled the public about European policy. Labour's approval rating has collapsed by 23 points in a single morning. In traditional Labour constituencies, local parties report unprecedented communication volume from outraged members. Social media platforms are flooded with videos of supporters destroying membership cards. The hashtags number government lies and number democracy betrayed are trending nationwide. One viral post with 3.88 million views shows a voter burning their Labour membership card with the caption, "I didn't vote for secret deals with Brussels." Deception isn't democracy. Then something extraordinary happened that transformed this political crisis into a potential government collapse. The Speaker of the House of Commons granted an emergency debate on ministerial truthfulness without government approval. Parliamentary officials released a statement citing exceptional circumstances regarding potential deliberate ministerial misrepresentation on matters of significant international policy. Parliamentary observers were stunned by this intervention. By constitutional convention, government controls Commons business. In overriding this principle, the Speaker signaled that allegations of systematic ministerial deception represent sufficiently serious threats to parliamentary integrity to justify extraordinary procedural measures. At 2:15 p.m., the Common Standards Committee announced an emergency investigation into whether ministers deliberately misled Parliament regarding European negotiations. Constitutional scholars call this the nuclear option for addressing potential ministerial misconduct. Professor Elizabeth Montgomery of Oxford University's Department of Constitutional Law explained, "Party democracy functions entirely on the principle that ministers provide truthful information to the House when substantial evidence suggests systematic deception on matters of fundamental international relationships. The Standards Committee represents Parliament's ultimate defense against executive dishonesty." Former Cabinet Secretary Lord O'Donnell described the situation as potentially the most serious ministerial conduct crisis since the Iraq war evidence controversy. Speaking to BBC Radio 4, he explained, "Democratic governance cannot function without basic truthfulness between ministers and Parliament. When substantial evidence suggests government has said one thing publicly while doing precisely the opposite behind closed doors, the entire foundation of parliamentary accountability collapses. No constitutional system can withstand systematic ministerial deception on matters of fundamental national importance. The international reaction has compounded the government's credibility collapse." European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen issued a carefully worded statement acknowledging ongoing confidential discussions regarding regulatory convergence while emphasizing the importance of transparency in democratic processes. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed confusion regarding Britain's actual policy positions given contradictory public and private communications. The diplomatic damage extends beyond immediate European relations to broader questions about Britain's reliability as an international partner under current leadership. The cascade of consequences began immediately and accelerated with extraordinary speed throughout Westminster. Inside Parliament, government authority evaporated hourly. By 3:30 p.m., 7 parliamentary private secretaries had resigned, citing irreconcilable ethical concerns. Government Chief Whip Alan Campbell reportedly warned the Prime Minister that between 30 and 40 Labour MPs would abstain or support a no-confidence motion rather than defend demonstrably false statements. Cabinet Secretary Simon Cassies has allegedly briefed ministers about potential serious misconduct issues under the ministerial code that could trigger individual investigations even if the government survives the immediate 9 crisis. WhatsApp messages from Labour MPs reveal growing internal revolt. Communications leaked to journalists show at least 68 backbench expressing profound concern about catastrophic credibility damage. One group, titled Democratic Accountability First, includes 11 former trade ministers advocating complete transparency regardless of political consequences. Parliamentary sources confirm multiple formal letters questioning leadership integrity have already reached the Prime Minister's office from within his own party. The opposition has moved with extraordinary strategic coordination. Conservative leader Penny Mordaunt immediately tabled a formal no-confidence motion co-signed by Reform UK and Liberal Democrat leaders in unprecedented cross-party cooperation. Parliamentary experts confirm a motion will receive priority scheduling with debate, likely within 48 hours with Reform's 37 votes, confirmed against the government. Mathematical calculation shows Starmer cannot survive unless at least 24 Conservative MPs cross the floor to support him, a scenario political analysts describe as virtually impossible given current circumstances. Financial markets reacted with immediate concern about governmental stability. The pound sterling dropped to 7% against major currencies in afternoon trading. Investment analysts issued urgent warnings about fundamental uncertainty in British governance. Major infrastructure investors announced temporary suspension of commitment decisions pending clarification of regulatory frameworks. Economic modelers projected potential investment losses exceeding £18 billion. A prolonged political instability affects international confidence in British institutions. Behind the famous black door of number 10, absolute panic has engulfed the government. Cabinet ministers have abandoned normal departmental responsibilities for emergency political survival planning. Sources inside Downing Street describe the atmosphere as somewhere between funeral and battlefield triage. One senior advisor was overheard telling colleagues, "The documentary evidence is too explicit for conventional denial strategies. We need something between partial admission and complete reframing, but I'm not sure such position exists." Emergency strategy meetings continue around the clock as officials attempt to construct explanations, reconciling contradictory public statements with documented private commitments. Initial polling suggests the credibility impact extends far beyond European policy to affect trust in all government communications. Political strategists warn this represents an extinction-level event for Labour's reputation, with one advisor noting, "We position ourselves explicitly as the honest alternative to conservative chaos." That positioning is now irreparably damaged regardless of policy substance. The civil service finds itself in an impossible position. Career officials implemented European policies they were simultaneously expected to see publicly disavowed. Former Foreign Office Permanent Secretary Laura MacDonald described the situation as the most serious ethical challenge civil servants have faced in recent memory. Multiple sources confirmed senior officials submitted formal concerns about potential breaches of the Civil Service Code requiring honesty, integrity, objectivity, and impartiality. These documented concerns could become central to potential misconduct investigations. Downing Street's communication strategy has collapsed into incoherence. The Prime Minister's official spokesperson issued 3 contradictory statements within 4 hours. First claiming documents were potentially misinterpreted, then suggesting they represented technical alignment rather than regulatory integration, before finally acknowledging ongoing discussions across multiple potential partnership frameworks, including regulatory cooperation. This evolving explanation reinforced rather than mitigated perceptions of deliberate deception. But here's the explosive revelation that transforms this crisis from political embarrassment to potential democratic emergency. Leaked cabinet documents reveal ministers explicitly discuss maintaining strategic ambiguity between public position and actual policy as deliberate strategy. A confidential communication plan dated 2 months after the election stated with disturbing clarity, "Public position Britain maintains complete regulatory independence." Actual position phase regulatory convergence across industrial, agricultural, and service sectors. Communication challenge. Maintaining these positions simultaneously, without exposure of contradictions. This bombshell proves a discrepancy between public statements and private actions wasn't miscommunication, but calculated deception at the highest level. If these documents are authentic and 3 separate political communication experts have verified their formatting and departmental language, their ministers deliberately orchestrated systematic public dishonesty as official government strategy. A memo from the Prime Minister's Director of Communications shows approval of this approach, noting PM acknowledges presentation challenges, but agrees necessity of maintaining public independence narrative while actual integration work continues. All communications to emphasize sovereignty preservation, while actual work proceeds on alignment frameworks. This calculated dishonesty potentially violates multiple aspects of ministerial conduct standards and parliamentary rules. Multiple sources confirm at least 5 cabinet ministers expressed serious concerns about the deception strategy during discussions, but were overruled. The Attorney General reportedly warned about serious constitutional implications of deliberate public misrepresentation. These documented concerns were apparently dismissed without proper consideration in what governance experts describe as textbook democratic malpractice that undermines a fundamental compact between voters and elected officials. The authorization chain leads directly to the highest levels of government. Meeting minutes from the Restricted European Strategy Committee show the Prime Minister personally approved the dual-track approach despite explicit warnings about democratic legitimacy. When questioned about ethical implications, Starmer allegedly responded, "The presentational advantages outweigh the disclosure risks. The public elected us to restore relationships with Europe, not explain every technical aspect of how we do it." Meanwhile, Boris Johnson has transformed from political exile to democratic defender in an extraordinary personal redemption narrative. While many question Johnson's own relationship with truth during his premiership, his current intervention focuses exclusively on documented evidence rather than personal claims. By methodically presenting authenticated internal communications rather than offering opinion or interpretation, he has created a narrative difficult to dismiss as partisan politics. Even critics acknowledge the documents themselves rather than Johnson's commentary represent the primary challenge to government credibility. His strategic approach has been remarkably effective precisely because it appeals to democratic principles that transcend traditional conservative labor divisions. By framing the issue around governmental honesty rather than specific European policy positions, Johnson has successfully positioned the debate as about democratic accountability rather than Brexit redux. This framing makes it increasingly difficult for the government to dismiss concerns as partisan maneuvering rather than legitimate democratic questions. For the first time since Brexit, European policy transcends traditional partisan divisions to become a fundamental question of governmental honesty. The latest Conrad poll shows overwhelming public consensus. 76% of respondents believe government should be honest about European relations regardless of potential public disagreement. This principle commands Supicus groups report consistent feedback, with one participant summarizing, "I don't actually care exactly what relationship we have with Europe. What I care about is not being systematically lied to about it." The next 72 hours will determine Britain's governmental future. Political experts outline 3 possible scenarios. Starmer resigns and a caretaker government forms under alternative Labour leadership. Parliament passes the no-confidence motion, triggering a port across Brexit divisions with minimal variation between original Leave and Remain voters. Federal election or an unprecedented cross-party emergency government forms to provide temporary stability. All 3 scenarios represent extraordinary political failure and potential permanent damage to Labour's credibility for a generation. Public anger continues intensifying hourly outside Parliament. Thousands have gathered with signs reading, "Honesty matters and democracy requires truth." In Manchester, Birmingham, and Bristol, spontaneous demonstrations formed outside Labour Party offices. Political observers from across the spectrum have united in condemning deliberate public deception as fundamentally unacceptable, regardless of European policy preferences. Former ministers from all major parties have issued statements emphasizing that democracy cannot function without basic truthfulness from those in power. Britain stands at a genuine democratic crossroads. The fundamental compact between voters and elected officials, that campaign promises and ministerial statements reflect actual intentions rather than tactical deception, faces its most serious challenge in modern political history. At its center stands a government that appears to have deliberately calculated that systematic public dishonesty was preferable to politically difficult honesty about European relations. As one constitutional scholar observed, this isn't about Brexit or Remain anymore. It's about whether citizens can trust anything their government says on any subject. Without that basic trust, democracy itself becomes impossible. Not since the Brexit referendum has Britain faced such fundamental questions about its European relationships and democratic governance. The decisions made in coming days will establish precedents about ministerial accountability that will shape British politics for decades. This isn't merely political scandal. It's about whether Britain can restore functional democracy, where voters make informed choices based on honest representations of government intentions. So here's the question that matters. Can British democracy survive this level of calculated deception? Has Starmer's government inflicted permanent damage on political credibility that will affect all future administrations? Has Boris Johnson permanently reshaped his legacy from Brexit architect to defender of democratic accountability? And how can voters make meaningful democratic choices if government statements represent tactical positioning rather than actual policy intentions? What do you think? Should deliberate ministerial dishonesty about international relations trigger automatic resignation, regardless of policy substance? Or is some level of strategic ambiguity acceptable in sensitive diplomatic areas? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this democratic crisis concerns you as much as it concerns us, share this video with everyone who values basic honesty in government. The mainstream media won't explain the full constitutional implications of deliberate deception, but we will. Tomorrow, we'll reveal the complete European strategy documents, showing exactly how ministers plan to systematically mislead the public about their actual integration policies. The evidence of calculated democratic betrayal is far more extensive than anyone yet realizes.